Welcome from the Salt and Light Media Studio at Nebraska Family Alliance. At the heart of our mission is defending and strengthening a culture of life in our state. We are honored to be joined today by someone who has been a pro-life leader, not only here locally, but nationally, and United States Senator Pete Ricketts. Senator Ricketts, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks very much for having me on.
Well, I'm excited to get a talk with you today because we actually just reached the 1-year anniversary, right? The historic pro-life victory that we had last November, where for the first time, life was directly on the ballot. And coming into that election, the abortion industry had been successful in every state they had gone to with these extreme pro-abortion constitutional amendments. They targeted Nebraska. And we knew we had to do something different to get a different outcome. But that meant having to make some really hard decisions. And, there were so many conversations. And I just remember your leadership, your strategic approach to how we could be successful here in Nebraska really changed the trajectory of an election. So can you take me back a little bit just through your mindset going into last year's election and what the impact of that result has been?
Yeah, so to your point, the abortion forces had won in 7 states before they got to Nebraska. They were on a roll. And in each of those states, what we saw was that they would put this really radical language and really kind of disguise it. Like you had to dig into the language to really kind of realize how extreme it was. It basically allowed abortion up until the moment of birth. And really took away the ability of the state to even regulate the abortion industry, to even provide for like safety standards, right? So it was really, really radical language. But it all sounded good, like, oh, we're protecting, women's rights. So what other states had done, like in Ohio, the Catholic Church has spent millions of dollars trying to get people to vote no, and we're unsuccessful. And what I took away from that is it's hard to beat something with nothing. So I talked to my team, and we have a really, really, really smart advisor to my campaign by the name of Jessica Flanagan, who I said, hey, we got to do something different. We know we can't do what those states are doing. I don't know what the answer is, but we need to do something different. Well, she came up with the idea that we should actually offer an alternative, that we not just tell people to vote no on their ballot initiative, but that we give them something to vote for, that we can campaign for. And that's where we came up with our, ballot initiative 434, which God thing, right? Like 434, you want to be 434, God was on our side. So anyway, the ballot initiative basically took our existing law, which protected the baby after the first trimester, and put it into the Constitution. So we gave people an alternative. Said you don't have to just vote no on their really radical language. You can actually be for just voting for what's already on the books. So that was really, I think, one of the keys to success is that we gave people something to vote for and not just vote against. And the results were that we actually kept their ballot initiative, the pro-abortion ballot initiative, under 50%. And that was the first time that happened. We're also the first state to really get this put into our state constitution, which was huge. The first time that we got these protections in our constitution for preborn babies. So it was really, really a big deal. It was a lot of work. And part of it was, to your point, making hard decisions. Look, I don't want to see any abortions. But we knew that if we went with our current state law, we'd have the best chance to be able to be successful. So we socialized that idea with a lot of the pro-life groups to get people on board, and that takes time.
Yep.
I think my advisor, Jessica Flanagan, said, they launched the pro-abortion ballot initiative on Halloween. We launched ours on Good Friday.
That's right.
I thought that was really good, again, kind of God thing here going, to really contrast that. But it took that time. It took that long a time to be able to get the idea out, to get people on board, because it was important to have everybody on board as we move forward. And so that was, again, one of the keys to success was really getting all the pro-life groups. And again, I think that's one of the things that was different here in Nebraska versus other states. In other states, you saw some of the pro-life groups fighting each other for credit. Our pro-life groups all worked together around a common cause and a kind of common idea of what we were trying to accomplish. And that was one of the reasons for our success. But again, getting that buy-in takes time. And that's one of the things, some of the good work we did up front to be able to make sure that we had everybody rowing in the same direction when we actually launched our ballot initiative.
Yeah, and just I mean, having your leadership to help make those things happen was huge. And as you mentioned, Nebraska became the first state to hold the abortion industry to under 50%, and the first state post-Roe to actually pass protections for the unborn into our Constitution. So now our pro-life laws here are constitutionally protected, and we still have the ability to continue to press on.
Continue to win hearts and minds and do more to protect more babies.
Yeah, because we know we have more to do. And I remember election night, there was a lot on the ballot, a lot of really big races. You were on the ballot, and all these different results were coming in. And there were a lot of positive results, but everyone, I mean, we were just so focused on the life issue, and it wasn't until
it was very close.
We
were losing for a while.
Yeah,
actually most of the night.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we a lot of people woke up. They'd gone to bed thinking that we had lost, and then woke up and saw that no, we won.
Just so you know, I stayed up all day.
Yeah,
results.
Yeah, and I remember even just getting to talk to you that night when we realized that this was actually going to happen, that we were going to come out victorious. And it was such a great moment, but you just talked about having just that faith, just that faith, even of a mustard seed, to move mountains, and that's what we did in taking down the abortion industry. But there's two things that I hear you say very frequently. One, that Nebraska is a pro-life state,
absolutely,
and two, that conservative leadership matters.
Yes.
How do you think those things tied in together? Having that conservative leadership helped impact the results that we had.
Well, again, you can go look at these ballot initiatives around the country in the last election and see that where we had leaders like Ron DeSantis in Florida or Dusty Johnson in South Dakota, or all the leaders here in Nebraska who got on board with our pro-life ballot initiative, that matters, right?
Yeah.
So we did a tour going around the state talking about the really extreme language in the pro-abortion lobby's ballot initiative, but then talked about what we're doing, basically saying, hey, these are our solutions. This is like a law passed in our state. This is from Nebraskans, not from some outside group. So we went around the state talking about that. But we also had the support of Governor Pillen, of the Attorney General Mike Hilgers, of Deb Fischer, our Congressman Don Bacon, Mike Flood, Adrian Smith. And in fact, right before Election Day, we went on a tour around the state one last time with Governor Pillen and A.G. Hilgers and Senator Fisher and Congressman Flood and Congressman Smith to be able to, again, remind people how important it is to get out and vote and just promote, look, this is really, really important. So again, when you have leadership across the state that's putting their shoulder into it, that really helps drive home the message and really helps get people out to vote.
Yeah. And, so during your time as, even going back to your time as governor, we helped pass a dismemberment abortion protection to stop dismemberment abortion in Nebraska that you signed into law. We had an abortion pill reversal. We took some really big steps. And now you're continuing to help protect life at the federal level in our United States Senate. So could you tell us a little bit about some of the work you're doing on the life issue in Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're taking our values here in Nebraska and bringing them to Washington, D.C. One of the things I've done along those lines is introduce the Dignity for Aborted Children's Act. One of the things, just horrific things we found, was that an abortionist had 2,200 bodies of dead babies that he had aborted. I mean, just terrible, terrible stuff. Every human deserves the dignity of a burial when they die. And that's what this does. And the really sad part is we can't get Democrats on board with it. You would think that this would be a basic human dignity. It's really not an abortion thing. It's a human dignity thing. And we still can't get the Democrats on board because they're just so focused, and so afraid, frankly, they're far left wing on what they're doing. So that's one issue. Another one that, again, we've not been able to get Democrat support on, but is I co-sponsor and support the Born Alive Abortion Survivor Protection Act.
Yeah.
Which basically says, look, if a baby is part of a botched abortion and survives, you got to provide him medical care. I mean, it seems just common sense, intuitive that this is a child. The child's alive. You can't just leave it out till it dies of exposure. You've got to take care of it. We've got so many people in our movement that actually were aborted and survived, and because a nurse took care of that baby, now they're alive and part of our society. So that's one of the other things that we're trying to champion and get through the Senate.
Yeah.
Also, when President Biden, did a whole thing about displaying the Pride flag during Pride Month, I said, hey, it's pro-life month. We display the pro-life flag. Of course, they just ignored us. They didn't do it. But like just saying, hey, look, if you're going to take sides and stuff, you need to be balanced and show, again, you can't be for pro-life, you can't be for babies. So those are some of the things we continue to push in Washington, D.C. And I'll give you another example. It just came up. We were just fighting over the government shutdown.
Uh-huh.
And the Democrats, in their first offer, wanted to restore $1.5 trillion or so of spending. But part of it was they wanted to go forward on some of this healthcare stuff, but they didn't want to have the Hyde Amendment protections in it. And they knew that was a poison pill for us as Republicans. They did it on purpose, just trying to make us look bad, that, we didn't care about people's health care, when in fact they knew that this was an issue that without the Hyde Amendment protections for babies, it was just a non-starter.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many, different battles being fought over the sanctity of life. And we appreciate your continued leadership to help represent our pro-life values in Washington, D.C. But we know there's a lot that's going to be at stake moving forward, heading into next year's elections. Can you tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, from what you're seeing in D.C., what you're seeing back here in Nebraska, just what the stakes are going to be and how people can be involved in making sure that we're protecting and advancing our values?
Yeah. Our ballot initiative demonstrated that, look, elections matter.
Yeah.
We can make a difference.
Yeah.
We were outspent by the pro-abortion forces that seem to have unlimited money. But because we focused on a grassroots campaign and getting out the vote and really mobilizing pro-life voters, we were able to defeat them and protect babies. That is true every election cycle.
Yeah.
That we have the opportunity to make sure we're electing people who are going to support our pro-life values. And that's really, really important because the other party is not doing that. Again, I just mentioned the whole thing with the Hyde Amendment. For those who may not be familiar, the Hyde Amendment says federal dollars cannot go to supporting abortions. But the Democrats want to direct those dollars there all the time. And so we're always fighting with them about this. And what first thing you'd see when you get Democrat administrations, they remove all the Hyde Amendment protections and they start spending money on abortions. So elections matter, right? If we get good pro-life people in there, they will make sure we're doing as much as we can to protect babies and start changing these things around. And typically what you see, obviously Republicans occupy the White House, the House, and the Senate. And historically what happens is when one party occupies the White House, they lose seats in the House and the Senate. But again, that's going to have consequences with regard to policy. If we don't have, for example, Republicans setting the agenda, you're going to have Democrats setting the agenda. They're going to be setting their agenda around the pro-abortion lobby. So again, that's why it's so important to make sure we turn out our pro-life voters in every congressional district and for all of our Senate races to be able to make sure that we can, keep control to set the agenda so that we don't let the pro-abortion lobby have a way in to be able to start setting, whether it's regulations, policies, laws, all that sort of stuff. We got to make sure that we're doing the best job we can to stop that.
Yep. Elections have consequences.
There's
a lot at stake, and now's not the time to rest. It's time to build for families, for freedom, and for life. So thank you, Senator Ricketts, for your continued leadership for our state, for our country. We're grateful for your stand for life. It matters, and we're glad to support you in that work.
Great. Thanks very much. Appreciate it, Nate.